Have you reached a point in life where pushing harder just isn't working anymore? Where something inside of you knows it's time to step back, breathe, and figure out who you are now? An Olympic champion, Alysa Liu, said something that just stopped me in my tracks. I love struggling. It makes me feel alive. What if the hard season you're in right now isn't breaking you? What if it's waking you up? Today, we're talking about stepping away, starting again, and why struggle might be the very thing that leads you back to yourself. Hi, friends. Welcome to Taking Back Happy. I'm your host, Gina Granville, God's girl, retired homeschool mom of 4, empty nester, GG, essential oil and exercise enthusiast, Christian life coach, and someone who is taking back her own happy. I know many of you feel exactly like me in these midlife years, a sort of loss of direction, but you feel way too young and vibrant to sit on the porch and just watch life go by. What if you could reclaim your life, finding deep joy, renewed passion and purpose, and plenty of adventure in these midlife years? If you are ready to find your spark again, throw on those walking shoes, pop in those earbuds, and join me right here as we take back happy together. Hey, my Taking Back Happy friends. Did you know that I'm a Christian life coach and I have a special offer for my podcast listeners? I offer a one-time free one-on-one coaching call. So if you're interested in that, just hit me up and I'll give you all the details on that. In the meantime, meet me over in the Taking Back Happy Facebook group. It's a great way to connect with other women who are taking back their own happy. You know, sometimes winning isn't about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about stepping away, rediscovering who you are, and coming back differently. Today, we're talking about a young Olympic champion whose journey looks surprisingly similar to what many women experience in midlife. Her words literally say it all. Alysa says, I love struggling. It makes me feel alive. And maybe that's the secret sauce to rediscovering our midlife spark too. So let's look at what we can learn from the life of Alysa Liu. Let's consider our first point. Stepping away is sometimes the healthiest move. You know, self-care is not necessarily quitting. It's really choosing life. When Alysa Liu was burned out, exhausted, and overwhelmed, she didn't push through. She literally stepped away. She stepped away from her sport completely. She rested. She lived a normal life. She went to college. She rediscovered who she was outside of the performance and the pressure of being a professional ice skater. And honestly, that break from skating didn't make her weaker. It made her whole again. And so if we look at that from like a midlife connection, there's so many women in this stage of life where we just reach a season where we feel drained, we feel stuck, we feel disconnected. And our instinct sometimes is to push harder because that's probably what we've done our whole life. That's probably what we've done, raising kids and in our jobs and with our marriages and things like that. We just push harder. But really, the bravest move might be to change pace or to choose rest or maybe explore something new or really allow our identity to expand. We're not really falling behind when we step back. We're really rebuilding our strength. In my own life, some of my toughest decisions ended up being the best things possible. I taught Sunday school at church and I loved it. I taught teenage girls and I had several classes over the years, but this one class I had 4 years in a row and I had them all the way through. So freshmen all the way through seniors. And it was just an amazing 4 years of all of us being together. And after that, I taught a couple more years after that class graduated, but I kind of felt like God was just closing that door. And it kind of coincided with 2020. So it sort of helped close that door too, because we weren't really allowed to meet in person and we had to do like these Zoom calls and different things. When I finally mustered up the courage to step down from teaching, it was one of the really hardest decisions I had made. But it also put me in a place where I could rest and regroup. And at that point, I ended up going to a new church. I felt like God was opening a new door. But I don't feel like I could have done that if I hadn't stopped and rested first and regrouped and kind of figured out, okay, where am I going from here? Psalm 23 reminds us, He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. From Alyssa's example and even my own life experience, and definitely from God's word, we can see that rest is productive. When we get that space away from something, it really creates a clarity. And you really can't rediscover your spark when you're running on empty. Which brings me to our second point. We get to return on our own terms. Reinvention means choosing how you show up now. When Alysa Liu returned, she didn't go back to what she used to be. She chose like how she was going to train, who she was going to train under, how she would compete, how she would think about the experience, what kind of experience she wanted to have this time through. When she originally was competing and was so good, she was only like 13 years old. And then she was really good and she stepped away, even in the middle of being amazing, so she could kind of get her sanity back, regroup and figure out, do I even like this sport anymore? Is this something I want to pursue? On top of rediscovering her love for ice skating, she really reclaimed ownership of her life. And she didn't just return, she returned whole and peaceful and kind of aligned with who she wanted to be, who she saw herself as now. This is exactly what reinvention and midlife can look like. You don't go back to your old expectations or your old roles, maybe even your old definitions of success. You get to ask new questions like, what do I want to do now? How do I want to live now? What exactly matters to me now? Because a lot of times we can't go back to those old roles. And those old expectations, those are usually all worn out anyway. Midlife is not about recreating the past, even if it was a past that you were really happy in. It's about designing your future. When my kids were growing up, when we were almost done homeschooling those last few years, so many times I would have said, if I could just turn back time, if I could just go back and do this again, I certainly would. But think about it. What if that's the way you lived your life? It's not made to be like that. Your kids are made to fly and do their own thing. If you think back when you were a young person, you would have been just mortified. If your parents were like, no, you can't go live your life. You got to go back and live it for me. And I feel like sometimes we just really get wound up in that. I know I certainly did, because my whole identity was wrapped up in being a mom and being a homeschool mom and being a dance mom, a basketball mom, all the things. The cool thing is, just like Alysa Liu, we are allowed to rewrite the rules. We're allowed to change the way we live, how we decide to live. We're allowed to show up as the woman we're becoming, as the future me and the future you. And that brings me to the last point, and this is my favorite for sure. The struggle is the path to becoming a champion. And I just love this, how it all just ties together with the Alysa Liu and her story. But growth really does live inside of difficulty. After rest, after reclaiming her voice, after choosing her own way, she rose to the very top. When she won the gold medal in the Winter Olympics, she was the first American woman in 24 years to do so. Not because life got easier, but because she actually embraced the challenge. Her new mindset, I love struggling. It makes me feel alive, It just changed everything having that new thought. It helped her see something really powerful, like struggle isn't a sign that something's wrong. Struggle is really evidence that something is right, that something meaningful is being built. And if we think about that as midlife women, so many women will look at difficulty, myself too, as like a failure, like, oh man, I'm doing it wrong. Or if I had done it right, I wouldn't be going through this struggle. But what if the hard in our life really means like growth? And what if discomfort means transformation? What if challenge means like just expanding, like who we are and where we're going? Struggling doesn't mean failure. It might be just that last little, like that home stretch, or like that right before you go over the top of the hill. It's really, really hard when you're going up a hill. And then when you go over that top, you just have that momentum and you're going forward and new doors are opening and exciting things are happening. But you don't get there without the struggle. I was on a call tonight and a lot of women were talking about different things they were struggling with. And I shared some things that I was struggling with. And my life coach, Aline, said, I see a lot of value in the hard. And I just love that mindset. If we could just adopt that, I see a lot of value in the hard. It's so similar to what Alysa was saying when she was saying, I love the struggling. It literally makes me feel alive. James 1:2-4 says, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And that's the same for us. We can consider even the struggles, even the things that we don't enjoy, even the hard stuff, we consider that pure joy because we know it's going to create in us something that we want, something that we need for our future. And the truth of the matter is that champions are not people who avoid struggle. They are people who walk through it with purpose. So my Taken Back Happy friends, maybe your life looks nothing like a skating rink, but the journey is the same, or at least it can be the same. You may need to step away sometimes. You may need to reclaim your voice. You may need to learn how to welcome the struggle instead of like resisting it or being afraid of it. And maybe this season of your life isn't about losing yourself. Maybe it's about becoming a champion of your own life, because that life you're looking for, that you that has that spark and that excitement for what the future holds, really, she's not gone. She's just waiting on the other side of like rest and courage and growth. So as we become the champions in our own lives, let's step away when we need to and just rest and regroup. When we return on our own terms, we get to decide, what is this next season going to look like? And then also let's remember, we don't have to be afraid of the struggle, because the struggle is really the magic that makes us feel alive again. And thank you, Alysa Liu, for being such an incredible inspiration. And my Taken Back Happy friends, if you want to be inspired by everyday people, hop into the Facebook group. It's a great place to be encouraged and to encourage others. If this podcast blessed and encouraged you today, I'd love for you to share it with your friends. You can take a screenshot and share it in your stories, but make sure you tag me at Gina Granville so we can connect. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you join my Taken Back Happy Facebook group. I'll meet you back here soon, and we'll continue taking back happy together.